Welcome into Running It Straight for another week here on SENZ, May 24th. We have got a lot coming up between now and 4, and it's a very, very busy week. Not only do we have the Warriors in Napier to take on the Broncos this weekend, we're going to be down there, myself and Kemp. We've also got State of Origin next Wednesday night. The squad's named this week. It is a very, very busy time in rugby league. You can text anytime on 8833. You can also leave a comment on the YouTube channel, which is playing at the moment. We will pick those up and we'll put them to Kempy throughout the show. But we're going to kick off with a very, very special guest. We don't want to keep him waiting too long. It is an immortal. It is a man they call Joey Johns. He played many games for New South Wales as well as the Newcastle Knights, a good mate of Kempy's as well. And he joins us on the line now. G'day, Joey.
Hello, guys.
Hey, Joey, how are you, mate? Thanks for joining us this afternoon, mate. Good to hear from you. Mate, exciting times. Origin just around the corner. The side that you've picked for New South Wales, it's got some pretty big names in it. And for me, none other than Tom Trbojevic, whose form on the weekend, really, was that a big part of why you put him back there in the centres?
Yeah, look, we all know he's had problems with his hamstrings and a few groin tears, but he was back to his best. And look, the last year we lost the series, but we didn't have Latrell, we didn't have Turbo Tommy, so with them in the centres, throw in Josh Adokar, there is just great strike in this New South Wales backline.
Mate, what about Tavita Pangai Jr.? Like, was it based on? I said this week it was based on that game he came out against North Queensland Cowboys a couple of years ago when he played for Brisbane and destroyed them. Like, has he been on your radar since then?
Yeah, he has. Look, he's had some injuries and he's been in and out with some suspensions, but you're talking about that game against the Cowboys. He took on Jason Taumalolo, which no one takes on Jason, and he actually got on top of him. And ever since then, look, there's been all eyes on him from New South Wales. Kempy, you know where he was brought up?
No, I don't.
Newcastle. He played for South Newcastle Juniors. Mark Glanville coached him.
Oh, there you go. Well, that makes...
Just another Knights player we missed out on.
Mate, you've got obviously the Penrith connection there, and with Brandy and Freddie on the side, with Uppy coming back into that hooking role, that's obviously a big play. You've got the guys that have won a couple of premierships together there leading your team around the pitch.
Yeah, well, you need combinations at this level. You need to be familiar with the way each other play. We've got Nathan at halfback, Jerome Luai at 5'8", Appy Coruscant at dummy half, Isaiah Yeo at that ball-playing 13 position. So, look, the combinations are there. It doesn't change too much. You just sort of got to put the spit and polish on it, but understand, sort of educate the players around them what these players are going to do. But, yeah, it looks a really strong team for New South Wales.
Joey, where in your eyes does the mix or the balance sit between picking guys just based purely on form versus picking, guys that have experience and played State of Origin before? Everyone's obviously talking about Campbell Graham missing out on New South Wales this year.
Yeah.
How do you sort of see the balance of whether it's New South Wales or Queensland?
Well, you got to pick players in form, as you said, but also you got to pick players who have been there and done it before. Look, Origin is totally different to any other NRL game because, one, the referees stay out of it, so the game flows more, the ball's in play, and it's all kick reception footy, so you don't get those set starts where you can go through your sequence of set play. It is such a different game, so you need the players who have been there before who understand what it takes to win. And really, Campbell Graham will be there in the not-too-distant future, but, Tom Trbojevic is there, Latrell Mitchell's there. These guys are superstars of the game.
Yeah, you got some great pace out of dummy half. Both Queensland and New South Wales have got good pace out of dummy half and carriers of the football on both sides of that pitch, especially from that kick return. Is that where the game, the focus is on the game, Joey? Like, if you don't get that kick chase and that kick right, and you've got a pretty good kicker in Nathan Cleary, that's where the game's probably won or lost?
Oh, definitely. It's all about where you give the ball back to the opposition, and if you can build pressure and hold that momentum, it's just so important at that level, like when you played Test footy. So that's a huge part. I think that's an advantage for New South Wales. We got Nathan Cleary doing a lot of the kicking.
Yeah. Mate, what about the Queensland side? You know, like you look at their forward pack, they've made a couple of changes through that forward pack. Do you see a couple of opportunities there? Like David Fafita, he really hasn't proven himself at this level, although his form's been okay up there for the Titans. But do you see that as a bit of a weakness?
Yeah, I think there's a big opportunity there. I think Kafusi's going to be a big out. He's defensively, he's really aggressive, so I think he'll be a big out. But they'll carry on Queensland, and they'll say it doesn't matter who we pick, blah blah blah. You know all the rubbish they go on.
Joey, outside of the game itself, game one next Wednesday, what is it about the sort of week leading up to Origin that you love the most, and guys that have played it before or in around those sort of setups? What is it about Origin that just gets you fizzed in the week leading up to the game?
Well, there's so much at stake. There's so much at stake. There's so much pressure. There's so much interest. And from a player's point of view or a coach point of view, like, you're dealing with the best players. So I used to love getting in as a player and just competing against the other players when you're training and doing skill work or fitness work. It's just, when you're working with the truly elite, they get it. Their footy IQ is so smart. So it's such a great time. I just love it.
Joe, you look at Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai. They're another year older into that halves pairing, and you got Cam Munster and Daly Cherry Evans is probably going to play what I think is probably his last series this year. What is the importance put around those half pairings and especially for New South Wales and getting them across the line this year?
Well, the halfback controls everything, but I spoke before about Origin being different. You don't get penalties or, very rarely there's errors because they're the best players. So it's up to the halfback to control the footy, and he's got to do it under fatigue. That's the big challenge, the halfback, to have the ability to play when you're tired, but the ability to get the plays on and get the other players around you to play when you're tired. That's something you can't talk about as a commentator. Most of the game out there, guys can't pick their legs up. They can't get any breath in. So you talk about toughness. The thing is, Origin, the toughness is not standing up and fighting. It's playing when you're tired. Fatigue makes cowards out of players. But that's the key for a halfback, playing when you're tired.
Mate, Ashley Klein and the referee of the game and these new rules that have come in this year, have you guys targeted an area which you think you're better at over the Queenslanders in and around, because the ruck is so quick at the moment?
Not really. Look, it's such a short build-up that, with players carrying injuries, I think we'll only have sort of 4 sessions leading into next Wednesday's game. So, the last thing we want to work on is that rubbish wrestling around the ruck. But I like Ashley Klein as a referee, stays out of it, lets the game flow. So let's hope he stays, puts the whistle away and the game flows.
You mentioned just the 4 sessions. Joey, how much, I guess, coaching actually goes on around Origin and versus, I guess, just bringing guys together? You mentioned they're all superstars. They all play at the elite level. How much do you actually have to try and instill a game plan and set plays, etc., versus just letting these guys do what they do best?
Well, you give them the blueprint. You do your homework and you give them the blueprint, what you want to do and the areas you want to get to, and then you just say, all right, you take it, Nathan, you take it, Latrell, you take it, Tedesco, and you come up with the plays which suits the players, which suits you. So that's a part of it. Like as I said, you're dealing with the truly elite. They know their game. They know each other's game. So you give them the blueprint, but they fill in the dots from there.
Hey Joey, I remember when we were over there at Newcastle and come around Origin time, the boys are getting excited, their names are being mentioned and so forth. You've elected so many players this time with Polynesian heritage. Do you have like a Polynesian or a cultural expert that comes in and talks to these boys just to give them that little bit of extra?
No, we haven't yet in the State of Origin. Look, it's something, we've got a cultural guide that comes into Channel 9 that helps us. David, I'm just trying to think of his name. He's a professor. Anyway,
Lakisa, is it?
Yeah, that's him, yeah. He comes in and explains the dynamics of growing up in a Polynesian family and talks about their faith and how it works, because, the growing up for Polynesian young men and probably young women, it's a lot different to the way some of the Anglo-Saxons grow up. But he helps us pronouncing the names, which can be quite difficult when I struggle saying Jones and Smith. So that's always a challenge. But, look, it's a huge part of the game now. Look, I think everyone knows I'm a big believer in the Polynesian influence on the game. It's only going to get stronger. And I think the big thing is we need a team playing out of Pacifica. I think if we play rugby league with a Pacifica team, it can grow rugby league in the island.
Yeah, and you should be coaching it. And just on that, mate, I've got a text message just coming here from Peter, and he's just asked, mate, have you and your brother made up after that little spat you had about Origin?
No, he thinks it's funny, him back in Queensland. It's not funny. Not funny at all.
I laughed, mate, as me, you know, I'm a Kiwi. I laughed because I've heard you two argue when you were 18 and he wasn't much older, and it just brought back all those memories. You know, that just explain, like everyone talks about Queensland, don't they? You know, like the Queensland way, and they go around and they grow extra feet. Talk a little about New South Wales. Like, you know, there is no one more passionate about New South Wales than yourself.
Well, it drives me mad, but they'd say, you know, it means more to them. It's an absolute joke. Just, you know, the blue jersey for me meant everything in the world. I grew up watching Wally Lewis dominate New South Wales. So from a kid growing up, I had that bee in the bonnet. And then getting to play, now helping out the coaching staff, the fire inside just burns bigger and bigger every year.
Well, let us know when you guys make up. Kemp can take Matty off our blacklist, and we can maybe get him on in a couple of weeks. Joey, just a quick one before we let you go. Obviously, there are a few NRL games on this weekend before we get to Origin. The Warriors taking on the Broncos, and the Broncos team, which obviously loses, I'd argue probably the most out of anyone when it comes to Origin. So a prime time for the Warriors off the back of a bye to pick up another 2 points in Napier.
Yeah, I'm loving the way the Warriors are playing. They've simplified their way they're playing. They're playing for each other, which is well under the coach, Andrew Webster. They're hanging in. I did a game at the start of the year against the Sharks where it looked like they're going to get smashed, and they came back and won at the end. And I thought, well, this is a different team this year. And I think they got those key players in the forwards, especially players like Jazz Tavanga and these players that are just so tough and resilient. I think it's rubbing off on the team.
Hey, mate, I see a bit of a Newcastle flavour. You just mentioned Tavita Pangai playing for Souths in Newcastle yourself, and that I guess that time New South Wales selection comes around. But I see MG's on the fan tonight. Mark Glanville gets a run back on TV.
Wow, I didn't know that. I think he's starting to work with Owen Craigie and Adam Muir. Actually, they're doing stuff with disability services in Newcastle, which is a good thing. Actually, another thing on Newcastle, Kempy, guess where Payne Haas was born?
Is he another Newcastle boy?
That's a big one to lose.
up around my way in the Coalfield. So there's just another one we missed. Geez, that'd be nice, Newcastle. We got the two Safidis front row, and then coming off the bench, Payne Haas and Pangai Jr. That'd be nice.
Oh, what could have been? Hey, just before we let you go, Joey, on Newcastle, there's been a couple of texts in here talking about, of course, Kalen Ponga, who misses out on Origin this year. And Newcastle did try that experiment again of putting Kalen into the halves. He's back at fullback this week, and a man who actually did sort of light it up for Newcastle in the first half of the season, Lockie Miller, drops back to the interchange. What are you sort of making with, I guess, how Newcastle have been experimenting with that and where Kalen should be playing?
Well, I think he should be playing fullback, and I've said it publicly. Would the Roosters move Tedesco to 5'8"? No. Would the Storm ever move Billy Slater from fullback to 5'8"? No. And to defend in the front line, and especially as a half or a 5'8", it's such a specialised defensive position. And look, Kalen's without doubt one of the best attacking players in the world. I just think it was too much of a gamble. And you dull his attack with making him do extra defence. So he's back at fullback now. That's where he should stay.
Yeah, and totally agree. Hey, Joey, thanks a lot for joining us, mate. All the best for the game next Wednesday night, and hopefully New South Wales can get it done over Queensland. I'll probably upset a lot of New Zealanders by saying that, but you go well, mate. Enjoy your afternoon, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, see you, Kempy. See you, boys.
See you, mate. There you go. Joey Johns there, an absolute legend, and great to have him on the show. Good work, Kempy, pulling the strings. Do you have any affinity to New South Wales or Queensland?
None at all.
None?
No.
So you don't root for
I
any
just
of
like
them?
watching them bash each other up. No, mate, I'm Kiwi through and through.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So you just don't pick a side?
I just wanted to mention that about the Polynesian and the Pacific influencer, because they probably haven't sort of grabbed the opportunity there. If they did have someone that could go in there and really build in that relationship to Australia and that Pacifica, mate, they get more out of them.
Yeah, no, I do agree, and I thought it was
Something like 11 Pacifica boys playing.
Yeah.
And I didn't even count the Fijians.
Yeah, and I mean, it's you talked about, I heard you the other morning talking about the tier system and how that's a bit of a farce in international rugby league, because look, most of these guys are playing internationals for Samoa and Tonga, yet the Kiwis obviously can't play state of origin. Why do we have tiered system? It just blows my mind.
Wow, it's rules to suit. That's what they are.
It is rules to suit. Although, it's going to be fantastic on Wednesday night, Kempy. These are two great sides. I feel like more so than in the past, I'm looking at the two teams thinking like, man, these are evenly matched. You go back 2 or 3 years ago when you had, premiership winning Panthers in there, going up against guys that were very green for Queensland, guys like Ruben Cotter, even guys like Paddy Carrigan, Payne Haas, they were relatively new. And you looked at it and you went, man, New South Wales will blow them off the park. Never happened. Now, because those Queenslanders have been there for a couple of years, you think, this is going to be a cracking game. I can't pick it. No, I really can't.
And of course, what happens, and also, as you know, as a footballer, as you get towards the mature years of your football, which is where Nathan Cleary is at the moment, mate, it is going to. I'll tell you what, the game is going to be won on Nathan Cleary on Wednesday night. Yep. That kicking game and that kick chase behind it, if they can stop Queensland coming out of their half and play down from their half for field position, they'll go a long way of winning the game. If they can't stop Cobbo and Co, because they've got plenty of speed out of dummy half with Valentine Holmes and Fido, mate, they're in trouble. New South Wales.
I want to know the market for whether or not there's a successful Cam Munster strip throughout the game, because I'd jump on that straight away. There was another thing I was going to mention as well with, but I've completely forgotten. I was saying I couldn't pick it. Last year as well, I think people were saying New South Wales 3-0. Queensland come out. The Queensland jerseys that got released this week, did you see what's on the collar?
No, I didn't.
Written on the collar, on the inside collar, is Queensland expects you to do your duty.
But that's
isn't that just doesn't that epitomise everything about it?
I was speaking to Gordy Tallis about it, and he was saying you go up when you're visiting with the Queensland side, they take you out to all the rural spots like Mount Isa, and he basically explains and says, they show us what they do to put food on our tables and what it means to them in and around Origin time. Mate, you could imagine being a player and people are telling you those stories, and then you have to go out and play for them. Mm-hmm. No wonder Queensland always show up. So it is going to be a good game. I know that Joey and Freddie, though, like Joey's just touched on it, he's under a lot of pressure.
They're hurting from last year.
If they don't win this, you can expect them to be gone.
Yeah, they are hurting from last year. Great to talk some Origin off the top of the show. We will talk plenty of Warriors between now and 4. Got a big game this weekend. We'll detail a little bit about how this weekend's going to play out as well. We've got a big show on Friday, running it straight special from 3 Wise Birds in Napier. We've got to talk about Chanel Harris-Tavita as well. We haven't spoken about that this week, Kempy. So we'll take a short break. We'll come back. Your text on 8833, keep those coming in, as well as your comments on our YouTube live stream. You're listening to Running It Straight here on SENZ, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. If only the mics were on the air brakes. 26 minutes past 3 here on Running It Straight, SENZ. Send through your text.
I got something for you, mate. It's a bit of koha. Here you go.
What's that?
This is for you.
Oh, look at this. What's that?
There you go. It's,
mate, that's cool. Is that the Indigenous?
That's the Indigenous jersey, courtesy of the Warriors, mate, for us to wear on Friday down in Hastings when we go down there to broadcast. So you've
already won this one, haven't you?
No, mate. I'm not that. I'm not that.
Oh, look
mean
at that.
there,
That's fantastic. Hey, look, I'll hold that up for everyone on the YouTube stream. I'm trying to find where the camera is. There you go.
So a big shout out to Cam George and the Warriors for looking after the boys. And I know that our mate over here, Sammy Hewat, there's no bigger Warriors fan there. Of course you do. That's yours, mate.
A couple of questions that have come through on 8833 from Gary says, could you ask if Dylan Edwards will ever get a look in for Joey? That came in just as we were say goodbye to Joey, unfortunately, Gary. But Kempy, what do you reckon Dylan Edwards?
Oh, look, he's not too far away, and part of me says that if he went down to Desco, then Dylan Edwards will actually get in.
Yeah, has to.
You wouldn't change your centres around.
It's. I mean, Nico Hines, even, who's still on the interchange. I mean, it's a Dally M medal winner, and then with Dylan Edwards, you've got the Clive Churchill medal winner. It's crazy that those guys aren't in a starting team.
Well, you'd have, Edwards I'd have in there any day of the week because of the amount of work and just how consistent he is. He doesn't let you down. I think every club in the competition, he's one of those players that if you had a wish list, he'd be at the top of your wish list.
Yeah, I agree. Rory said, was Lockyer a fullback or a 5'8"? Started as a fullback, went into the 5'8", but different. I think it's different to the skill set of someone like a Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, look, Lockyer was a half, and a lot of halves do start at fullback and move in there. I just don't think Kalen Ponga's designed to be playing in the front line. Because you've got to be robust. You've got to be able to, his short twitch fibres and the way that he moves isn't suited to someone that plays 80 minutes in a front line. He's not as effective, and I think that's what Joey was sort of saying. So, instead of making him a 5'8" and trying to lead the team forward, leave him at fullback and allow him to roam and insert himself where he can and be explosive. So he can still do the same job. I just think I'm on Joey's side when he says that you don't move your fullback to 5'8", you work around him.
Yeah, JC said in here on YouTube as well, Campbell Graham made for Origin, and I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell Graham also comes into this team over the 3 games. There's a few texts that are coming on the Warriors, which we'll get to after the news because we'll talk through the team list for this weekend. One thing we haven't talked about though, me and you, Kempy, is Chanel Harris-Tavita. That news announced earlier this week that he's coming back to the club next year. The big question that everyone's asking is where on earth does he play? Because you've at the moment got 4 halves signed. You've got Egan and Lussick playing in the hooking role, and then on the interchange you already have the utility in Jazz and Dylan Walker. So just your reaction. I haven't spoken to you about it personally, so your reaction to the Chanel Harris-Tavita signing and where you maybe put him in 2024.
Well, the first thing, I'm pretty surprised that he signed straight away. Like he wanted some time out and to get away from rugby league. Well, mate, it hasn't even been a season and he signed back in here. So I think the signing caught me off guard a little bit. I wasn't expecting him to come back until probably somewhere through next year, thinking about playing NRL. The good part about that, he's not been out the game too long, so he's got a good engine on him. It'll be really quick to get him back to speed. The second question then is, well, where does he play? And I think what you've got to take in a context is that the Warriors are starting to build some depth. So having him in the team doesn't really matter where he plays because he can cover a number of positions. He can play half, he can play fullback. I don't know why people are saying centres.
Can we talk about that, please? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, well, we can talk about centres. I think, mate, centre would be the last spot that I'd be putting him.
So the thing that really annoys me, Kempy, and I feel like we've talked about this before, is I really get annoyed when people look at a good player and just go, oh, he can play in the centres, put him in the centres. They do it with fullbacks, they do it with wingers or whatever. It was like that old conversation with Manu Vatuvei, I'll put him in the front row, put him in the forwards, put Manu in the forwards. It's like you just think because someone's good, he'll go into the centres. Now, people talk about Chanel's defensive ability. Yes, he was defensively sound, but he was playing essentially in the middle, if not far from it, where players are generally coming at you front on. You go into the centres where you're now facing a Penrith attack, a South attack, players running in motion, lateral movement. I've said this time and time again, it's the hardest position in rugby league, defensively to learn.
Defensively, it's really tough at 2 and 3 and at 5'8", what he was used to. He's got a back rower on his inside and a big centre on the outside. Yes. Mate, look, you could imagine, let's say the Origin boys as well, Latrell Mitchell, Tommy Trebojevic coming up against Chanel Harris-Tavita, and they'll be just going, they'll be licking their lips, you know what I mean? So,
like a Tony Staggs.
Yeah, look, I said this week and this morning on the mornings with Izzy that it really looks like to me that they could convert him into a hooker. I think that there is an issue in the hooking stocks, not only in the competition, but in the Warriors, where they need to fix that problem if they really want to push for a top 4 position. Now, he can play halves, okay? We know that. So he can cover half if we need it. We've got 4 halves in. Mate, you throw another one in there, now they're starting to talk whether or not they want to be at the club. Yeah. But you've only got 2 hookers. I think it's a weakness that the Warriors have, and they need to really build some depth there. Jazz Tavaga ain't going to do you the job there. You're not going to throw Dylan Walker in there. Every time we get a young hooker coming through, they leave and go to another club. So I think CHT, I think he should be able to get that hooking role done if he's had a whole season in it.
So does he start on the interchange in the first grade side next season, or does he start in New South Wales Cup?
I think he starts depending on his off-season, I think he'll start New South Wales Cup, but if he goes pretty well in the trials, for instance, he's got it, mate. The thing with, this is what will happen if you put him in the middle of the park, is he can tackle. No, they're not moving laterally on him in and around a real confined space, and he'd do the job. And the other part is he can play 80 minutes.
Yes.
So, if you take those 2 considerations, then what you do is Craig Bellamy it and go, well, I'm going to turn Cooper Cronk from a hooker into a half. and vice versa, and say, well, I'm going to turn CHT from a half into a hooker.
Yeah, and he's got the footwork. He's got the sort of I don't know, the eye, I guess, for playing in a sort of hooking role. So, yeah, very interested to see how it all plays out. We will only find out in 2024 when he does rejoin the club. We've got to take a break for News Sport and Weather. There's plenty of questions that have come in. We also will go through the team list for this weekend against the Broncos. Now, just a reminder, before we get to News Sport and Weather, we have a special running it straight on Friday at Three Wise Birds in Napier from 3 until 5 p.m. If you're in Napier, we'd love for you to come down and have a beer, grab a meal. We might even throw you on air. We're going to have lots of people down there joining the show. A couple of Broncos legends. There's a few former Warriors there as well. But obviously, if you're not there, just tune in from 3 to 5 on Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, of course, we've got the live call on Saturday, build up from 6 o'clock. So it's a real big week for Rugby League here at SENZ. We're all very excited about it. And then you've got Origin next Wednesday night. Cannot wait for that. We'll take a break for News Sport and Weather. Your text questions and some off YouTube as well right after this. Running it straight. Welcome back in. Thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. A few texts that have come here on 8833. Charlie says, boys, you have to name your best 17 from players currently in the NRL. Who you got? There's a great exercise for us, Charlie. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go away and work on that, me and Kempy, and we are going to reveal it on Friday for our Running It Straight show from Napier. Kempy, there's your homework.
Nice.
Your best 17. Are we going on form?
I never did.
Are we going
homework
on current form, or are we just going on, generally the best 17 of
Mate,
the current stock?
You need to do some homework. I'd probably name mine right now, but I'm going to give you a couple of days to think about it.
I do, because I don't want to name the same as you. We think too similar, Kempy. That's the problem. A text in here, which I think is great from Dino. Sam, ask Kempy how hard was it to play against Joey back in the 90s, Kiwis v Kangaroos?
Yeah, Dino, that's a great question. Look, I've known Joey since he was, 15, 16. He came through Newcastle. I was 5 years older than him, and we ended up playing together in my last year. Took the second grade to the grand final. He was playing halfback, I was playing 5'8", and Matty was my next door neighbour, and Joey, me and him would surf all the time up in Merriweather, So I've known the kid most of my life, a good bloke. So I played alongside him, and I remember playing alongside him, and you could see then that he was going to be something great. He was winning games at 18, for us, and I remember talking to him all the time, and he was a bit emotional about, people expecting me to do too much, and I was just saying, mate, just let it happen. You're going to be great. Anyway, Dino, the question is, Joey, when we ended up playing against him, when he made the Kangaroos, we made the 95 Kangaroo team, and him and Matty played in that game, that one that we lost when Ridgie hit the skim, the drop kick, the left foot drop kick at Huddersfield, and we lost it in extra time. But you just playing against him, you just knew that he was a step ahead. There was only a few players that were a step ahead of everyone else at that level. Benji Marshall was the other one. So they come around every now and then. Kalen Ponga's got that in him at the moment. Reece Walsh has got that in him at the moment. But the difference with Joey is Joey was doing that every single week. So when you were up against him, mate, you didn't know which way he was going to go. And when he's coming at you, you could see him setting plays up like 2 plays before it actually happened. Yeah. And that's really hard to defend against. So the other part about Joey too is he had like a dumper's body. So if you ran into him, you got to hide him. You know what I mean? Because his base was really big, and he always used to say, I guess he had a big ass. But the best thing about that for him is that when he got the base right, if you ran into him, I seen him clean so many forwards out because they thought, we're going to run over that number 7, and they just look at him and go, I'm not going back there.
Well, he's obviously known for the attack, but defensively
is the best defending halfback, along with Jeff Tuvey I've ever seen. Jeff Tuvey was the other one, mate. I seen him one game, Manly played Canberra, Mal Meninga tried to run over him 2 metres out from the try line, and he picked him up. Now, that is such a hard thing to do, and took him back. But Tooves, if you look at Tooves' early days, mate, he's a fine-looking man, Tooves, but defensively he put his head where no one else would put it, and look at him now and you'd think, mate, they're two different blokes now.
Yeah, that's fair. Matt's texting saying, completely agree, and have been saying CHT should be trained at hooker. Wade's contract runs out next year and the head knocks and injuries are mounting up. Unfortunately, that is from Matt. What we'll do is we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll run through the team lists for this Saturday, Warriors v Broncos. We also might have a look at just some of those other games going on this weekend. It is a bye week for a lot of the teams, given Origin's coming up, but we will try and tuck into that all before 4 if we can. SENZ here on Running It Straight, here on SENZ, thanks to South Seas Healthcare, Auckland's largest Pacific wellbeing service provider. Running It Straight here on SENZ. You can keep your texts coming through on 8833. We'll have a look at the team list for this Saturday night, Warriors v Broncos, if you have missed it. So for the Warriors, starting in the fullback jersey, Charles Nickel Kluster, Dallin Watene-Zelezniak and Marcelo Montoya on the wings. Rocco Berry stays in the centres alongside Adam Pompey. And then you've got Luke Metcalf making his NRL debut for the Warriors in the number 6 jersey alongside Sean Johnson. The two front rowers are Adam Fanua, Blake Bantiafoa, Freddie Lussick in the number 9 jersey, Jackson Ford, Maratini Akora in the second row, and then Tohu Harris, of course. Hastings boy is playing in the number 13 jersey. Bailey Sirinen, Josh Carriner, Dimitrik Sifakula and Tom Ale are on the interchange. Before I get to the Broncos, maybe we'll just chew the fat over that. So no Dylan Walker, no Wade Egan. That's probably the two of the big ones here, Kempy. Yeah. Wade Egan out with, I think, a calf strain, Dylan Walker with a toe. And so you've got Luke Metcalf starting in the number 6 jersey alongside Sean Johnson. We've been excited to see young Metcalf finally play a game. You think he's the long-term halves option. What do you make of it and of the rest of the 17?
Look, I think it's still a very strong team here. You'd love to have Dylan Walker out there playing, especially that change he makes when he comes on off the bench and they lift to another level is definitely going to miss. They've gone with a big bench. Freddie Lussick has to play 80 minutes in the middle because they've got no cover in there at hooker. It's going to be really interesting to see how they rotate that bench through the middle of the park. But when you look at it as far as some consistency goes, they've got plenty of points in them, the Warriors, on that side. I think Luke Metcalf, Ronald Volkman, he had a pretty good game, although he dislocated his finger. He's probably not right to play this week while Luke got his chance, but you don't lose anything with Luke Metcalf getting in there with the speed that he's got. So the problem you only have with him is that up in that front line there, can he defend for 80 minutes? I think with the young boys over the other side, it's going to be still a pretty quick game.
Yep, I do agree.
And the bench is going to be really key here in how he uses that in and around making sure that Freddie Lussick can get through 80 minutes.
So the one thing I'm a little bit worried about is it's the first time I think that we haven't had a Jazz or a Dylan to come off the bench, which means we don't have that energy, that punch that we've seen basically through the first 12 rounds. You mentioned it's a bigger bench, so yep, they're going to be able to come on and replace those tie bodies, but we're not maybe going to get that impact and sort of line speed, etc., that Jazz and Dylan bring. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that dynamic works.
Bailey Sirinen will cover the hooking spot. If they need to bring someone on, and we've seen that already a couple of times this year, Bailey Sirinen has come on and filled in at that dummy half. But the problem that Bailey has, and I hope they've worked on it since the last time they used him at hooker, is his pass at a dummy half is terrible. He's not used to it. He's used to running lines out on an edge. And when you get in there, it's not the first pass, it's the pass under fatigue that is the one that catches people out. And you just don't want the game to be too tight, and Bailey Sirinen has to go into dummy half to get boys on the move, and they're picking the ball up from behind themselves.
Let's go through the Broncos team then on the other side. And I mentioned when we were talking with Joey Johns, they're missing 5 of their frontline players: Paddy Carrigan, Payne Haas, Reece Walsh, Selwyn Cobbo, Thomas Flegler, all out for Origin. So starting in the number 1 jersey, Tristan Saylor, son of.
Yep.
And the two wingers, Jesse Arthurs, Dane Mariner. Then you got Tony Staggs, Herbie Farmworth, the usual centre pairing in the middle for the Broncos. Esmaram, Adam Reynolds coming back in the halves, so they've still got 2 of those guns there. Then in the front row, we've got Keenan Palacia, Corey Jensen, Billy Walters in the hooking role, then Kurt Capel, Jordan Rickey in the second row, and Kobe Hetherington plays lock. On the bench, Corey Pakes, Xavier Willison, Brendan Piakura, and Marty Tapo. Their bench also is very different to what it has been over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I still think that back line, Kempy, and I haven't seen much of Tristan Saylor. I think he's played 5 odd games, but when you look at Arthurs, Staggs, Farmworth, Mam, Reynolds, it's everything but Reece Walsh in that back line.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, their attack is very good, especially with Reynolds in there. The kicking game's going to be second to none. Ezra Mam is playing some pretty good football this year. Tristan Taylor, apparently, on all accounts, is playing some really good football at
New South Wales?
Yeah, New South Wales competition, Queensland Cup comp. So he gets his chance. He's up against it with obviously Reece Walsh there, but I'm expecting him to play a part of it. It's definitely the forward pack. They lose some serious punch up front. You've still got Billy Walters, that spine working. I reckon Kurt Capel and Jordan Ricky, they play their 80 minutes, but the bench, apart from Martin Tapo, who's sitting on the bench, who's had that experience, the rest of them are pretty well inexperienced, and probably where the Warriors can really make a decent dent in them after that 20-minute mark. So any team with Adam Reynolds in it at the moment, I know they're coming away from home. They're meant to be flying in, on a private plane, just getting in, getting out the same night. They're trying to do a hit and run job on them. They're staying in Brisbane.
And on Saturday.
Apparently they're only meant to be coming in on Saturday. So it's they're trying to just get in and get the job done. And it's just really important that the Warriors don't take any shortcuts in this game. When you've got 5 of your best players out in Carrigan, Haas, Walsh, Cobbo and Fledgler, mate, you've got to make sure you nail them early and then just drive that nail in.
Yeah, we will do plenty of pre-game analysis on Friday, Kempy, from the pub 3 to 5, so I'll save some of it for that. But there are some texts that have come through on 8833. Dave says, man, I'm gutted that Dylan Walker is out this weekend. I thought with the bye, our players would have been rested and primed. Him and Egan are huge losses. Or do you guys think that with a second-string Broncos team, Webster is strategically resting players? Cheers, Dave. Love the show as usual.
No, not at all. I don't think Andrew Webster's that type of bloke. He's pretty straight up. And if you've got an injury, I think the likes with Dylan Walker too. If Dylan Walker says he's injured, he's injured. Like, he's been around for a long time. He's won premierships. He's played at the top level in New South Wales and Australia. And if he's carrying an injury that he thinks he can't play with this week, then he's a bit like Tohu Harris. He needs to have the time to rest. Wade Egan's a big loss. They need both Wade Egan and Lussick at the moment, and hence why the reason why we talked about CHT helping out in that role. Dylan Walker's a big loss. Every part of this season says that when Dylan Walker plays in that 14 jersey, he comes on and he makes a massive difference. Now, who does that for the Warriors this weekend? And again, I'm pretty sure Andrew Webster will be putting the acid on that bench to make that impact when they're required to come on and play.
Cameron on YouTube has said, how long are Wade Egan and Dylan Walker out for? Hopefully not longer than just this week. I understand, Egan's just a calf strain, Dylan Walker's a toe injury, and I think they intimated that they should be okay for next week.
Calf strains are really dangerous, Sam. You look at Jake Trebojevic, he's out for the series, so it depends on where it is, if it's in the belly of your calf, it's at the lower part where your Achilles and it joins your calf. They're all different sort of strains, and you've got to be careful that you don't really tear it too badly, otherwise it's going to be out for a little bit of an extended period. So we can't lose Egan because we don't really have a lot of cover in that position, and they'll be monitoring that really closely, because coming through this back end of the year, we know that we've got an opportunity to really string some games together. It all starts this weekend. I think going down to Napier, I think what Marcelo Montoya said today, that we're coming down to play for Hawke's Bay, that if that doesn't put any pressure on anyone, you know what I mean? I think they're going to show up and say, we're aware of what's happened here in the Hawke's Bay, and we've come down here to do our part for you. Yeah,
that's great words from Marcelo Montoya. On the positive injury news front, Braden Williami playing in New South Wales Cup this week, starting in the centres, and then Webster intimated yesterday or earlier this week that Mitch Barnett back next week, and Tamati Martin and Jazz back after the bye, which is going to be in 4 weeks' time. So some positive news there on the injury front. We'll take one more quick break. When we come back, we might just have a quick look over some of the other games on in the NRL this weekend. Back in a mo. Running it straight, we are moving up to 4, where we hand over to the run home. Other games on this weekend. Tomorrow night, Thursday game, 9:50 kickoff. We've got the Dolphins and the Dragons. And the Dragons riding high after beating the Roosters in that last-minute thriller, Kempy, which absolutely ruined my tipping. Well, actually, every game ruined my tipping.
I told you the St. George Dragons. You sack the coach. Normally what happens is the team comes out and they get the win.
I'll tell you what happened. So after your advice, I took the Dragons, right? I tipped the Tigers, and I had the Melbourne Storm. What happened was I backflipped on the Dragons 5 minutes before kickoff. I backflipped on the Tigers. And then when both those upsets happened, I thought, screw it, I'll go the Dolphins over the Storm. And the Storm won. So I went 0 for 3. What do you reckon, though, what happens tomorrow night? Dolphins, they're missing a few players, not the main squad, but Ben Hunt out for the Dragons, probably a massive one for them.
Yeah, it is. Ben Hunt's there, the organiser of everything they got. I just think the Dolphins have still got their senior boys there, their Kiwi front row, the back row, still got plenty of good players in that side running around doing all right. So it'd be a good game, but because it's the Dolphins at home, I'm taking the Dolphins.
The Eels are $1.18 sports bet over in Australia over the Cowboys. That is on Friday night. Cowboys, no Murray Taulagi, no Ruben Cotter, no Tom Dead and Valentine Holmes. Easy win for the Eels?
Well, you'd think so, after the way that Mitchell Moses showed up last week. Mate, I'd hate to be picking teams at the moment, but I'm going to the Eels.
And the Knights Seagulls?
No Trebojevic is on going the Knights. Kalen Ponga's still in there.
Rabbits Raiders.
Rabbits back on the
It's a good game, that one, actually, that Rabbits Raiders Saturday night.
It's the game of the round.
All right, running it straight, coming at you Friday from 3 to 5 at a pub in Napier. We absolutely cannot wait. Get involved if you're down there, or give us a listen. That's us for another week. Big round of NRL and State of Origin next Wednesday. The run home coming up next.